Welcome, listeners, to the Master Your Money Show, how to build your entrepreneurial and financial mindset so you can make more money and accelerate your business. Now, the reason I put this show together is because I wanted to see entrepreneurs not just excel in their business, but I wanted to see them really take control of their financial future as well. So I've sought out some really incredible speakers across different areas of business, mentoring, and financial industries to get their experiences and for them to share their wisdom with you, so it's going to be empowering for you. So today we have the one and only Marty Vids on the show, and Marty is an expert speaker that he particularly stood out to me. I saw him on LinkedIn putting together some really powerful content that was hilarious and really engaging at the same time. And then I started listening to his podcast, and he's got such a great way of talking to people and delving into different topics in a way that is really engaging for you as a listener. So I know you're going to get so much out of this today. And today I'd just like to thank you, Marty, for being on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, well, thank you, Josh, for those kind words. And I'm excited to add value to your audience. And I'm really looking forward to the chat. So thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Now, Marty Vids is a master change agent, life coach, business mentor, and business builder, and a people builder as well. And he's got a wealth of experience across business and himself running businesses and also mentoring others, not to mention his podcast show and his business that actually helps speakers get themselves out there as well. So, There's so much there, Marty. I love it. I'd love for you to tell us a bit, where did it all kind of begin in that repertoire of experiences?
I guess it all began back in the 80s, where ethnic people in Melbourne, they either worked jobs or ran pizza shops or milk bars, which is like a grocery store. And we, as a family, had a family business, and Dad and Mum allowed me to run the bread stand. So from a very early age, I got to understand the financial dynamics of how to buy the bread wholesale and then sell it retail, but also importantly, understanding customer service. So when a customer came into the shop, I'd already know which bread that they want and put it on the actual counter, and they'd always give me a little tip. And I'd do stuff like help the bread man bring in the bread, and then he'd throw in an extra couple of loaves. And then I'd come up with innovative strategies like, we'd have day-old bread or nearly new bread. And instead of throwing out the bread the next day, we would just make it half price, because that would usually be tossed out, and that would be the end of it. So even from a very young age, I already had those entrepreneurial skills. Thankfully, my mum and dad for letting me run the bread stand. So that was pretty cool.
That's great. And it sounds like they really, really emphasize that customer service side of the business there from an early age as well.
Well, yeah, I understood that it was all about people and understanding people's needs, and that delivering beyond expectation, like just putting the milk and bread on the counter. Now, I had to play the percentages right. So 90% of the time I'd get it right, and then sometimes things would change and they didn't want it, but I could adjust. So I played the trends, but overall it really worked. So invaluable.
Wow, that's great. And how did that then transition into your business journey there, into what's happening now?
Yeah, well, then I moved into, obviously went to school, and then from there got a real job. I did stand-up comedy from the age of 17. I was pretty introverted, extroverted within the family, introverted socially. So for me, it was really important to challenge myself and test myself doing the craziest thing I could possibly do. And but that was great, because it was like planning and, responsiveness to audience was really important, and also building momentum. It was like with comedy, it's like you're either trying to shock, get agreement, or fascinate with humor, and you can judge what's going on in the audience and respond accordingly. So it really made me nimble, and also I was never afraid of anything else after doing that, because it was like, it's literally a death on stage. If things And I remember my first gig, not only did it not go well, no one moved. It was like nobody laughed, nobody moved. And it was, fortunately, I presented it well. And I had a few comedians come up saying, look, the content will come, keep getting up there because there's something there. And then that evolved into running comedy nights. So very early on at the age of 18, I brought comedy to rural areas. And then I did the worst thing possible, was starting to listen to criticism on why I should get a real job. And I did get a real job and joined the bank. And in hindsight, that was interesting because all those attributes of comedy and running comedy nights really helped me creatively when I went into the logical finance area. And I was a business banker within Westpac Bank, which is one of the big major 4 banks. And then when at the age of 28, mortgage broking was just new to Australia. And we started Mortgage First, a partner and I, Craig Parkins. And we thought, why would you go just to one bank when you could have the choice of 40 and we could educate you how to save money beyond, not only from competitive price tension to get better deals, but actually educate people how to really utilize their income to pay their mortgage off quicker. Mm-hmm. And then that evolved into like a fantastic business. We were purchased by a publicly listed company in 2007, just before the GFC, and people say that was brilliant timing. It was sheer luck, but it was good timing for us. Yeah. And then I mentored a few people in the US and Europe on accountability in business. And then I just got the itch to build another business, which ended up being Mortgage 500, Wealth 500, financial planning, Lease 500, and Business 500, commercial lending. And we won national awards in that. And that was, that was our journey. And once we'd done that, it was, again, it was time to sell and exit. And now it's just freed me up to be in a position to work on projects that I'm really interested in at another level. So that's where Book Speakers Direct comes in, the Marty Vids Show podcast comes in. And, I mentor people. I teach people how to podcast, build a business around podcasting, small business owners I work with. So now it's much more diversified as to my general interests and how to really express myself in those interests. So very different to what it was a little while ago. But yeah, it's been an amazing journey.
Yeah.
The thing I'm most proud of is never losing a team member in 20 years. That's the thing.
Wow.
Out of all the money side of it, which is great, I go, that's why the business was financially successful, is we really looked at people beyond the transaction and coming back to exceeding expectation and really caring for people. That was like the fundamentals of why we were able to use that platform of mortgage broking to do so well. So but that's sorry to waffle on, but that's my journey in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's great. I can see a connection there from when you were working in the bread shop to looking after people then in employees in your business there as well. So that's really cool to share your journey. And the interesting, you had all these experiences, but then along the way, you've been mentoring other people on how to do that too. When you mentioned you were mentoring people in the US and Europe while you're in Australia, seems somewhat quite early on, from like ahead of the game a little bit, when people, that's pretty commonplace today. But how did that all come about?
Yeah, well, I went over to the US because I always wanted to see Disneyland. It was one of my aspirations, and my wife and I went over, and we just caught up with a guy named Paul Martinelli, and he was running a business mentoring program for small business owners throughout Europe and America. And of course, I go to it, and all of a sudden, I'm an ambassador. All of a sudden, so it was like they recognized my strength was not only in innovation and creating systems that work, but accountability. I was really strong on accountability. And what was lacking in a lot of the small businesses was these great people who had fantastic visions and ideas, but then they struggled on the execution because they just couldn't execute on a structure. They were almost too creative, and then they couldn't come back in, work on a structure and focus on what worked. And like I said, you only need one simple idea that works, and then you can expand upon that. And that really is the key, rather than a lot of people end up having 9 or 10 plates spinning and then plates are crashing all over the place. I say get your one fundamental offering right, amplify that, and then there'll be a natural diversification that happens off that success. And that's, don't diversify just for the sake of it, because you think that's the cool thing to do. Really channel your energy and focus in one area that works. And then, once you've got scale on that, there'll be natural diversifications that come out of that. And the key is working out which is the distraction and actually which is relevant to the client. And that's really important. Your idea as opposed to what the client actually wants.
Yeah. And I imagine with your business mentoring, that's obviously a key you dive into then with your track record, with accountability there, and helping do that. How do you do that in your business mentoring with your clients?
Yeah, well, generally what I find is that issue is like people have got a lot of things on the go, and I try and work with them and really focus them in. So I'll give them 10 things that they like doing, and then I'll start to channel it in and say, out of those 10 things, which are the 3 that are most relevant that you enjoy? Because it's important you enjoy the tasks and activities you're doing. And then also, which are the ones that there's a need in the market that you can be compensated for? So I try and really strip that back to get to one key strategy that we can then work on and amplify. And then pretty much within a 12-week period, you can get scale pretty quickly. Once you've got the clarity and focus, then you can just cut off all the distractions and really, really get scale pretty quickly. So then it's just messaging to the market and then ensuring that the market's coming towards you and you're meeting it halfway, and there's a value exchange. And I simplify it. It's more complex than that, but I simplify it to that point because people just get so overwhelmed, and then they get panicked because their business isn't doing as well as they think it should. And it's generally because it's overcomplicated or scattered. So that's what I really hone in on, that one key idea. Have specialized knowledge. You can charge a bigger ticket price on that specialized knowledge, and then just amplify. So ensure that the person's confident as well, because sometimes they got a great idea, but they don't believe it's a great idea. So you're working. A business can never outperform its owner. So there's a lot of personal work sometimes that goes into that coaching as well. So but I love it when the lights go on and people get it and they see the reward that comes. It's a really satisfying experience. And I think my point of difference is I run businesses as well. So I'm not just a coach that coaches. I run Book Speakers Direct, the Marty Vids Show podcast, generates, great income as well. So I'm running businesses in my mentoring. So it keeps me edgy as well. So I know what's going on in the market and I know how to help in real time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's great. Look, there's so much of the entrepreneurial side we just dived into there, and we've only scratched the surface there, I'm sure, with things. Now, I'd like to kind of switch tact a little bit now and jump into the money side of things. Now, you touched on the bread shop when you were young as well. Was there any other earlier experiences of dealing with money and business before that point in time for you?
The money side has always been interesting for me because I've been in a situation, even with the bread stand, where I was the 8-year-old kid with, $15 in his pocket, $15. And that's a lot of mixed lollies when you're 7 or 8 back in the late 80s, right? So it's been really interesting, that psychology of expecting the reward. And it's almost shocking to me when it doesn't work financially. Like, I remember running those comedy nights, and the key to the comedy nights was actually getting the audience to the venue. So I'd go on local radio and market it, and I'd go into all the local shops with flyers and really engage, socially with people, and that then brought them to the event. And even paying the comedians, taking a percentage off the bar. I would come out of it and make really good money. Like Dad was saying, get a real job, but I was earning more money than him at the age of 18.
Wow.
So it was an interesting dynamic. But there was one time where I let a football club actually do the marketing and advertising because they said they would get the numbers, and there were like 10 people that rocked up, and there should have been 80. And that was a massive lesson in regards to really taking responsibility for the, for the client acquisition, right? In my style. So it was, and that really hit me hard. That was a kick in the pants for me. And fortunately, what I was very fortunate that the comedian said, look, Marty, you're doing great work supporting us. We're not going to charge you for coming out and doing this. And I thought, wow, that's the relationship, the depth of the relationships that I'd created. And then 2 nights later, I ran another gig. And that was then, then we had 120 people, and I paid the comedians a bit extra. So it was like, but that really, when I get hit like that, it really stings because it's like 10, 15% of the time, and it's unexpected. And I think that's a good thing to actually get that sting occasionally. Because even Josh, going further into my professional career, what I did was in the GFC, after I'd sold the business and made quite a lot of money, you think you're kicking goals and you're always going to kick goals, right? But the GFC hit, and I had a property investment that was an emotional buy, and I actually lost 200 grand in 6 months, not going on my gut feel that I should sell this property now. I waited because I thought I'll always find other avenues to make money. And again, that was a highlight moment to go, I knew better, given my financial acumen and given what was happening in the market. But hey, this was a nice property, right? So I let my ego take my bank balance and go to work instead of actually using my financial capability and saying, no, this is the right decision to sell this now. And I would have saved myself 200. But the lesson in that was I had an opportunity to do a subdivision 3 months later, and now I was a bit gun shy, even though my capability said I could make 300 grand out of this project. And I did it in the end because my financial acumen said these numbers stack up. And if I don't take this chance, then I'm going to be restricted forever based on this one bad moment that I've had. Now, we're talking big dollars here. So it was, or for me anyway, it was big dollars. But it was like, and then I managed to recoup that money on one really good investment strategy. So it's really, again, trust your gut, trust your capability. And, and if you feel like you need to make a decision and you don't want to make it because of your ego, make that decision. Don't let your ego run the show. And I've only ever done that once to that degree. And as soon as I did it, as soon as I was emotional, my ego got the better of me, I got stung. And that's the same. As soon as I let the footy club do the work that I needed to do to ensure the success of that project, I got stung. So I'm very conscious of looking at the finer details on things and, dotting my I's and crossing my T's. And but that'll give you some understanding on the storyline of how I view things. And even in business, when I'm running businesses, I know what the 5-year projection and 7-year projection and 12-month projection is. So even if we are not hitting targets early, because it takes time to build your business, I have key trigger points that I'm looking for on the journey to know that it's going to be successful. And if we're not hitting those key trigger points, then I need to either adjust something or it gets to a point where that idea is just not going to run. But generally, it's an adjustment. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. What I like about those two stories is kind of almost the second time round, you actually decided to, it's pretty clear that you're learning from the mistakes you made from it, and you actually were able to turn them both around too, which can totally understand. We can get in that position of something bad happens and we pull completely back. but you still looked at the numbers, particularly in that subdivision project, and they look good. And based on your financial analysis of it rather than the emotional side, it sounds like it gave you that jump to go ahead to do it. And
numbers tell a story. Numbers tell a story, Josh. I always say that, and emotions can take us away from that story. And I prefer the numbers story because it's something I can calculate and count on. And then that's my platform. Then the emotion, that's fine to have emotions on things, but it's just not always great to have emotions around financial decisions when you know something makes sense logically or it doesn't.
Yeah.
That's how I've separated the two. I've used the emotion in my dealings with people and how I respond to them, and I encourage them beyond the transaction, but they're two very different things. I'll make sure I'll have my numbers platform, and then I'll get back to the people platform, which is what I enjoy as well. But I keep the two very separate, even though they are interlinking all the time. So yeah, in my own mind, I have to work that way.
Yeah. That's great. That's great that you make that separation there, so you can make clear decisions around that as well. Another question I want to ask you, back when you're talking about how you're involved in mentoring other businesses and you're running businesses as well. Was there any kind of key mentors that you would like to share that really had an impact on you through your journey?
Yes, even going back to grade 5 at primary school, I was probably a D student, not really shooting the lights out, Josh, but my grade 5 teacher was a football player, the captain of a local football club, and he recognised my interest in sport and football and actually taught me through that. So he taught me maths through that, English, my social studies project. So I went from a D grade student to an A grade student within 1 year. And then he showed that social studies book pretty much for the next 20 years to see what you can do if you're coming from a place of interest and immersion in things that, you can link to education. That was a massive game changer for me. And that's how I still to this day, I mentor based on the strengths of the person and looking to how that fits into the market, as opposed to saying, do this my way or else. So I keep them accountable to themselves, but I also look at the talent that they have, capabilities within themselves, what they enjoy. And they're these key people like Andy Meikle, who was an Ironman in the 90s, spoke to me at the bank when I was at the bank. And he said, Marty, you have so much more to give and you're floating here. And he said, do you want to keep finishing 7th in life? And I go, well, what do you mean 7th in life? And he goes, because that's what you're doing. You're floating. You're watching Jerry Springer at lunchtime with your friends and having log lunches. And I don't really think that's who you are. And it wasn't, but I wasn't doing something that I was loving at the time. So what I decided to do after chatting to Andy was model the top performers within the bank and see what they came in early. They had their appointments set. They were out in the afternoon. They didn't have long lunches, and that got noticed. After 6 months, I had 3 job promotions, doubled my income, and within 12 months, I was running my own business. But utilizing that capability and then transferring it into my business that I really love to do then. So so Andy was a big mentor. Now Trevor Hendy's a really big mentor, who again, for some reason, Ironman, maybe that's what I should have been. But he's an Ironman that went in the Uncle Toby's Ironman series in the 90s, very famous in Australia. And Kurik Ashley is another one. He's a peak performance coach. But they're always doing the same thing. They're coming back to caring for me as a human being. What do I love? What are my interests? And just to ensure that I'm evolving the whole time. So it's not about having a false expectation of where I should be that I'm not, but it's really being connected into the projects I love and immersing myself in them and getting really clear on my message, which is to enrich lives. That's what I'm here for, is to be enriched and to enrich lives. I happen to do that through business, through podcasting, but that's my goal when I wake up in the morning. And that's really my driver, because one sentence can change someone's life. Someone's going through a challenge and something clicks for them, or someone's on the verge of breaking through and you help them get there. This is all the personal stuff, right? And that's really where I'm connected. I just have this capability in business that I utilize to express that. So, but they're three or four key mentors over the journey that have been massive for me. Massive.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks for sharing this. There's some absolute gold in there for sure. Now, coming up to the end of the interview, this is something I've been asking everyone when I speak to them. I'd love to hear what the one thing is that's made the biggest difference in your financial mindset and then your entrepreneurial mindset as well. So I actually like to start with the financial mindset. What's the one thing in your world, your life experience that's made the biggest difference there?
Passive income. So I don't look at savings and investments, I guess, the same way as most people. I look to create assets that generate income. Mm-hmm. And that's like, even in the mortgage book, the trail income. So I'm always, if I need, like, let's say you need 20 grand or 10 grand to live off per month, that's more important to create that residual revenue coming in. And then you can allocate that into, standard assets and investments. But for me, what's really important is to create that revenue per month, that residual revenue that keeps coming in and keeps growing. And that changes the game because then, when we look at traditional investments, we know that rental out of investment properties, and we know how that works, and that's fine. But what I'm looking at for people is, how do you create that through an asset that actually you can grow over time and free you up to give you more choice to do the things that you really want to do in the world? And I think that's been a big game changer for me in my thinking, because otherwise people go, oh my goodness, I need 2 million worth of assets or 1 million worth of assets to be able to live off 40 grand a year, and that to me is almost a panic stricken. Yes, play the long game, and that's okay. But I go, think about how to create that passive revenue, whether it's, through an ebook, or whether it's through a mastermind group, or might be a book you've written, anything like donations through podcasting, through Patreon, anything that can bring that residual income up to give you more choices. And that's effectively, once you do that, let's say you get to 10 grand a month, that's effectively like having 1.5 million in traditional assets, right? So you can do that through business, which I find invigorating, and it really frees people up in their lives to continue to evolve, to make exciting choices. But that was a big game changer, and that came through running the mortgage businesses. I go, oh, this is, I know telecommunications are the same, where that residual income starts to grow. So there's traditional means of doing that, but you can also think innovatively on how to do that as well. And I really, given technology, if you have specialization in an area and people are interested, you can run masterminds and do various membership groups to be able to really share that specialization in the world we're living in today. So yeah, that was a big one. Yeah,
that's awesome. And how about the entrepreneurial mindset? The one big thing there.
Yeah, entrepreneurial mindset for me is the market. The market always comes to you with the idea in one shape. I've always found that, even when I was in the bank, people go, oh, we feel like we're handcuffed to one bank. Even though I like you, Marty, I feel like we're trapped. And I go, oh, and I made a footnote of that. Yeah. So when I saw mortgage broking, and to give people choice and competitive tension, and to educate them on how to save money off their mortgage and then invest successfully, I go, great idea. Same with Mortgage 500, which evolved into all those other 500 groups. They were saying to me, oh, if only you did financial planning and leasing, we'd rather come to you than go to the banks for that. And I go, okay, well, let's get specialists in their field, bring them into the business, and let's go where the hand's moving towards. So that's always, same with Book Speakers Direct. We're revolutionizing the speaking world globally by not taking 25% commission and creating a community for speakers to engage with each other, get reach on their social media, have event managers in the community seeing what they post and getting them more gigs with a one-off fee, and doesn't matter how many gigs they get. But again, we're revolutionizing something that's been very traditional for a long time, but we're on the front of the wave with the idea, and speakers are saying something's got to change given what it was, because there were 3,000 speakers on a regular agency's books and only maybe 50 are getting gigs. And I go, interesting. I'm a speaker. I've done stand-up comedy. I've run businesses. I love community. So this puzzle fits beautifully for me in how I can support that community. So as an entrepreneur, I go, oh, they're telling me their dislikes, and in that there's opportunity. So it's, if you can solve a big problem, then your compensation is going to be, a good reward as well. So it's got to be interesting. And that's the other thing. If it's innovative, if it's engaging, if it's exciting, that's what I look for. And I get stimulated by that. I want to wake up on the edge of the bed every morning ready for action. So that's how I look at it from an entrepreneurial mindset, and get the right people in the business. So you can't do it all yourself. You got to get key people. Like I have Donna and Jerry Morris, who have had 20 years bureau experience. Jerry came up with the original idea, and my business acumen, as well as Donna's capabilities, and Tom, who does the IT, it's like this real bringing together of capabilities with a shared interest in the business. And coming from a good intent is to get speakers out there, and stories change the world, as they have in mine, and as they have no doubt in many others. So that's a long-winded response to, but that's how I find things out.
Yeah, that's great. Look, there's been so much gold in this here. I love where you said accountability to bring structure to your creativity in there, and I really love what you've touched on there, that the market comes to you with the idea as you ask the market, as you're out there speaking and building those relationships, that journey along as well. So Marty, I just want to thank you for going through your journey there and sharing your experience. Now I know you've got an exclusive offer just for people just for one person who's first listening to this interview series, to spend some time in a mentoring session with you. And after everything we've heard there's going to be so much in that too. So tell us a little bit about that, what the lucky person will be in for.
Yeah, the lucky person will be in for a 30-minute session with me. And with that, we'll be really getting clarity around, and I'll get clarity around simplifying their capability and their talent and connecting that into the market. So that's what I'm really focusing on, is to give people a simple strategy forward in that 30 minutes. And that's all it takes sometimes, is 30 minutes, and they're off and away. So, putting it out there. If anyone wants to take that up, it would be an absolute pleasure to work with them. That's
awesome. Yeah, look, thank you again, Marty. That was just incredible. There's so much insight into that as well. So we really love that you've joined us here. Listeners, make sure you tune into the next interview series as well. We've got so much more. We're just diving into this whole side of thinking like an entrepreneur and changing how you do business to scale and make money that way, but also in how to deal with finances as it comes up as well, and what you can do to learn from the experience of others as well. So check out the next one. Marty, once again, thank you for joining us here, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Josh, and wonderful questions, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to your listeners as well. Thank you.
Fantastic. Bye.